listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma, and I'm your host, Trish Close. Rifino Valentine back on the podcast today. He's the president and founder of Valentine Distilling Company in Detroit, Michigan. I interviewed him last February of 2023, and to this day, that interview remains maybe one of my all-time favorites. Why? I just love his story. I love the paths that he took to get to where he is today. I love the way he operates his business with so much intent and care. It's very special. He started this business, he says it had to be in Detroit, first of all. This was in 2007, 2008, micro distillery. So maybe the worst place to start a business. In this interview, though, he says, looking back, for him, it actually was the best time to get into this. We talk about some of the uphill battles and challenges he's been facing in this industry in the last couple of years. Oh, and P.S., I am wearing the exact same shirt in this interview that I was wearing in the previous interview. So not embarrassing at all. And yes, I do own other clothes. We talk about what's coming up in 2025. Really cool and exciting things happening for Valentine Distilling Company. We have a small debate over whether or not I saw him on CBS this morning, or saw his company on CBS this morning. I say yes. He's not quite sure. We get into it a little bit. No big deal. But seriously, I love catching up with him. He has great business advice. He talks about the lessons he's learned and how he's pushing forward. And we think we may make this an annual interview or conversation or discussion or whatever. Here's Rifino Valentine. Here's how it went down. I watched CBS this morning because that was my station when I was an anchor. So CBS, that's what I was watching. And it was Nate Burleson doing a tour of Valentine Distilling. And I was like, I had him on my podcast first. So it was on CBS. So I don't know if the actual segment aired on CBS this morning, but
are you sure that wasn't our video from Instagram?
No. I just felt it was like, hey, and then Nate's going to be, on Nate's touring, a distilling company. So that was all I saw.
I mean, that's news to me if it was, and I'm surprised he didn't tell me. Because we're doing a project together. You
and Nate Burleson?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's how I'm going to start this episode. Thank you for being back on the podcast. First of all, Rifino Valentine.
It's good to see you, Trish.
Just as I hit record, I realized I am wearing the exact same shirt the last time we talked. I do have other clothes.
I'm probably wearing the same thing too. So. The only thing that's changed are my wrinkles.
And I have some more gray hair.
Stress wrinkles, yeah.
Yes, I just went back to look at our interview really quickly as I was sitting here. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm wearing the exact same shirt. Okay. I do have other clothes, everyone. But maybe this is just my Rifino Valentine shirt. I'm not sure.
There we go.
I interviewed you February 2023, and I have some bullet points for you. P.S. You're the president and founder of Valentine Distilling Company. Great interview in February 2023. Easily one of my all-time favorite interviews. Just going to put that out there.
Wow.
Wrestling. You discovered wrestling in high school, completely changed your path. You were a day trader on Wall Street. You were very successful, but it just wasn't fulfilling for you. Decided to start a distilling company. You wanted to create a true premium product. It had to be in Detroit. By the way, this was like 2007, 2008. Maybe the worst time, maybe the worst place to start a business. Yeah. Slow but steady, highly successful now. And you are consistently voted your bourbon best in the world. Valentine vodka, world's best. So slow but steady, but very successful. Are all of those points accurate, sir?
Yes, I love it. It sounds great together too. So yeah, it's nice to reflect back on that stuff too. It's only been a year, but those were the goals, and it's nice that we've achieve some of our goals, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you say that. It's always good to look back to see where you are now and where you were maybe, a year ago, especially as, we're getting into the new year. It's always good to look back and see how far you've come. And you just said you set out these very specific goals for yourself and your company.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I started this for very specific reasons. Focused intent, I think is one way of putting it. But the original idea and what we stick to today, it all goes back to manufacturing, and that's why it was important to do it, in Detroit, one of the former capitals of manufacturing.
Right. Exactly.
Back in the day.
Yeah. What have you been up to the last 2-ish years?
I mean, we've been doing the same thing that we set out to do, was make quality spirits, bring manufacturing, like I just talked about, not just back to Detroit, but back to the US. I mean, it's no secret of how much manufacturing we've lost over the last 3 or 4 decades. So we've been doing, the same as we've always done, just trying to make spirits. I don't want to make spirits that compete for Michigan or even the US. I mean, we better make stuff that competes internationally on quality if we're going to be successful at this.
Last time we talked, I think you were mentioning, it was important for you to grow, but at a pace that made sense for your company. And so little by little, you were introducing some of the spirits in certain states. Has that grown? I think it was like a certain amount of states 2 years ago. Has that grown since we've chatted last?
We might have added, I forget where we were. We might have added a state in the Midwest, and we've kept that going. Mm-hmm. The only news to come out of that would be maybe early next year. We're looking to expand outside of the Midwest. So we'll stay tuned for that, but we hope we have some roots growing in another part of the country.
Ooh, I like that. And this interview will air in January, so hopefully we will see some cool things coming from Valentine Distilling. Is that a lot of work to expand that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough when you open up a new market. You never know. First of all, you're getting into business with people who you haven't done business before, being the distributors, the liquor stores, all the bar owners. So you hope that you're going to be received the way you want to be received, and so it's always a little nerve-wracking, but exciting in the end. And like we talked about last time, what you just said, we've tried to grow sustainably, or that's probably not the right word, but grow in a smart way where we can maintain that growth or have solid growth. We don't just want growth for growth's sake. I'm not just trying to make this company as big as I can and then and sell it off. We're trying to be a good company in the long run. So growing that way is really important. And I think especially now, so you're out in wine country, close to wine country, right? Like we're going through a weird phase right now. Everybody is, right? Wine, breweries,
uphill battles. Yeah.
So I think growing the way we've grown, I think is starting to pay dividends in the grand scheme of things, where we didn't overextend ourselves. We didn't bite off more than we could chew. And now we're able to take advantage of, in a weak spot in the market, we're able to kind of capitalize on it. That's the hope, at least. We'll see how it goes.
For sure. No, for sure. A couple things to unpack from what you just said. First of all, I heard bar owner. I love that. Oh my gosh. It's like music to my ears. And sustainable is, for Oregon, that's like Oregon's favorite word is sustainable. So we love sustainability. And yeah, right smack dab in the middle of wine country. I've got the Willamette, wine country up just north of us, Sonoma, Napa, obviously south of us, and the wine industry, like you just said, breweries, distilleries, we're facing uphill battles when it comes to I mean, it's just this industry in total, right? I definitely had a question for you regarding that. Like, what kind of challenges are you facing right now?
I mean, the way I look at it, we haven't fully recovered from COVID yet.
Right.
I would think, it
Yeah.
seems like it was ages ago. It was only 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And, you think about that. We had the shutdowns, then we had the supply chain, then we had the labor, uh, shortages and whatnot. And then now we're dealing, I think a major thing that we are dealing with and a lot of other people are dealing with is the inflation aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
We make high-end products, and high-end products are the first ones to be cut out of, somebody's budget. So all those things, and, a lot of it was caused during that COVID thing, and it's still kind of lingering around. We're still dealing with supply chain, mess ups here and there. It's not as bad as it was before, but and then labor, we're still dealing with labor issues to a degree.
Yeah.
So a lot of these problems are lingering, and I think it's kind of just coming to a head right now. But I look at it as something that's necessary in the sense of when industries, especially distilling, just exploded. In only a couple years, we went from a few dozen around the country to, I think the last count was 2,500 or
Yeah.
2,700.
Yeah.
It's probably not the number that it should be at. And you look at breweries too. Breweries, this might be their second or third, reckoning or thinning of the herd,
Mm-hmm.
where hopefully the strong can survive.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because you really do see who is left still standing. I mean, here in Oregon, we have, beer country too, Bend. And then
Yep.
even in Southern Oregon, microbreweries were growing pretty steadily here. It was really cool to see. And I want to say most of those are gone now. They're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is sad, but at some point, when things get ahead of themselves, and
Right.
it just has to happen. So
Yeah.
that's the way I've tried to run this company. We've kind of been waiting for this to happen. Like you said before, we started, 2007, right before it was during the recession was already going on in 2007. But it might have been the best time to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's things have kind of bottomed out. So
Yeah.
I've been cognizant of all that all this time and kind of built this company for moments like this. We've kind of been expecting it, I guess, to some degree.
Well, do you think because you started a company again and maybe one of, just not a great time to start a business, you learned a lot of lessons from that, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you learn lessons from it. And, I learned you got to, or I try to run it at least. We try to run lean where, we're not taking on a lot of debt for times like this when we need it. If you got a lot of debt right now and you go into this kind of economy, I mean, you're going to get wiped out. It
Yeah.
seems like pretty quick, I would think.
What are your thoughts on, I know I'm seeing more campaigns. I know there's some here in Oregon about, the sober October, there's dry January. We even have a campaign, rethink the drink. I think it is in Oregon. That's really affecting, a lot of incredible businesses. And the way I see it, especially in wine country, and I'm sure you have the same thoughts with a distilling company, it's not just this bottle of booze, right? There's so many hands that touch it. There's so many families that are affected by it. For a lot of, companies, it's a family business and they really are supported by this. We had a campaign here, come over October, which encouraged people to gather and share a bottle of wine and share some food just to really combat that sober October idea. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing? I mean, are you seeing a lot of this kind of, in your face, rethink the drink type campaigns?
For sure. And that's definitely a piece of what's going on right now
Yeah.
is that reshifting of people's habits and whatever. And obviously the healthy part of that is great, right? The downside, and this has been the downside of this whole industry, I think, is it just funnels when things like this happen, it funnels all the business back to the huge corporations. So it is important
Mm-hmm.
uh, to realize, what you are choosing to drink and supporting, hopefully things that support the economy, your local
Yeah.
economy.
I have so many thoughts on dry January. My husband and I think it's silly. I mean, you do you, obviously, right? If that's what you want to do in January, please go for it. I just don't ever want to get to the point where I'm indulging so much that I have to have a dry January, right? Like moderation, even in moderation, right? I mean, just like it goes back to that old saying for us.
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? Moderation
Yeah.
is definitely the way you want to do it. So, incidentally, the other thing that we're seeing a little bit of is the Ozempic effect.
Oh yeah.
That so I believe it's a real thing, and I've talked to a lot of our liquor store partners, and they see it, uh, on the ground. But that's a cause too. So it's not just the dry January effect and just shifting uh, consumer consumer preferences, but there is a real Ozempic effect too. When you're on Ozempic, you do not want to have a cocktail.
Oh man, that is why I've heard a little bit about that, but I didn't realize it suppressed like your desire for a cocktail.
Yep,
That's
yep,
another reason for me not to go on
right.
Ozempic. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
man. Yeah, we're seeing that, we're seeing that here, just certain campaigns. And I was at a winery the other day, and wine is my love language. And not just because, again, it's not this drink that I guzzle every night. It's sharing it with friends. It's eating it with food. Same with a good glass of bourbon, right? Like it is about, for me, it's about sharing and gathering and being with people that you really enjoy. But I look at it like this guy I know, he makes wine and he helps to support his wife. And he has a staff of young kids in his tasting room. And he has people in his vineyard that he pays who have families, who have lived here for a long time, who, help
yep.
maintain and keep this beautiful vineyard growing and thriving in this area. So it has more of an effect, I think. And I know you agree with me on that. I mean, you see it too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole genesis behind my business
Yep.
is because of that effect that you have on the local economy.
Um,
From the farmers to the
yeah.
workers to the tax revenue that you generate for the state and local government. It's all important.
And take me back a little bit. I know this story pretty well, but Valentine Distilling was started on a bar napkin,
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
It
you
was,
just go ahead, please.
yeah, no, it was just the the recognizing what was happening with our economy, our manufacturing economy in general, and that was epitomized just in the spirit manufacturing, where everything is consolidated into a few large companies and usually publicly traded companies. So
Yeah.
it was that martini idea, that still looked good the next morning.
Perfect. Oh, gosh, I've had so many ideas whilst
Yeah,
consuming. And then the next morning, I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? That was
yeah,
dumb.
yeah,
Oh, I have a friend, he's a winemaker, and we typically get together, and I mean, within a couple of hours we're changing the world. We are going to
yeah.
we're going to start a supper club for 100 people that runs monthly. And then I wake up and I'm just like, well, that was freaking dumb. Um, that was the wine talking for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess for you, I want to read this quote really quickly because I love how you've thought about your business, why you go into it. And I read this quote. It's on your website. I've always appreciated the American craftsman working by hand, making one-of-a-kind items that stand the test of time. We take great pride in using old world techniques that haven't changed in centuries. There are no computers controlling the stills, just our sense of taste and smell to determine the cuts.
I mean yeah, I mean, I love that quote too. And, that really comes, we touched on this, I think the last time too, but
Mm-hmm.
that's my upbringing where,
Yep.
we grew up on a farm. We grew what we didn't grow ourselves. We were buying from other farmers who did grow it. So yeah, that still is as true today as when I originally said that, 15, 18 years ago, however long it was.
Still no computers?
Still no computers, although, we're talking on a computer right
Well,
now,
yeah.
but all of our equipment,
Hmm.
the techniques that we do, there's nothing that has changed in centuries with what we're doing. So,
Amazing. What
yeah.
are, it says determine the cuts. What is that?
Well, so that's the separation. When you're distilling, distillation is really just separation. And it's, you know, very similar to refining crude oil into different, uh, you know, natural gas and unleaded fuel and diesel fuel. It's all the same principles. We're just separating different compounds. And when we do our fermentation, so when our yeast is doing the job, um, unlike a winery, for instance, you're going to keep everything in that fermentation. When we're fermenting grains, on the other hand, we're making a lot of chemicals and compounds that you don't want to
Mm,
get into the final product.
okay.
So that distillation is the step after a brewery or a winery. And it's really the separation of the different, not to get too scientific here, but it's really the separation of these different compounds. For instance, and everybody can recognize this one of the compounds that we create in the fermentation is acetone. And everybody knows acetone as nail polish remover.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the most noticeable things. While there's many things that we're cutting out. When we say the cuts, we're cutting certain things out.
Ah, okay.
So when the acetone, acetaldehyde, when those are coming off the still, we're separating that out and cutting it. So we're only keeping exactly what we want and
Okay.
none of the bad stuff.
So I'm assuming it's pretty obvious when you can smell or taste, be like, that's got to go.
Yeah, so stuff like acetone and acetaldehyde, those are pretty obvious, but it always becomes tricky when you're in that crossover. There's no exact demarcation when it's like, okay, that's completely done. Now start collecting what we call the hearts, which is what's going to end up eventually into a bottle of whiskey, vodka, gin, any of them. So it's not, an exact, hey, this is done. And that's where the skill comes in. And that's where experience and whatever, we're gonna make the cut now,
Yeah.
and
Um, yeah, I prefer my spirits without acetone. It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
a preference. Um, Speaking of experience, it always blows my mind. And again, I hate that. I'm sorry that this comes back to wine. This is just what I know. Winemakers who will, they've been doing it 20, 30 years and they will walk through, they'll take a grape and they'll pop it in their mouth and they say, can you crunch the seed? If it starts to taste like a grape nut, we're getting close to harvest. And I'm just like, what? Mind blown. Like, how, like,
yeah, yeah,
but they've been doing this
yeah,
for decades.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about hands-on. At the major manufacturers, they're not doing any of that. They're following the same recipe they've done for decades and just going on and making it as quickly and
Mm-hmm.
cheaply as possible. That's why we love the small craftsmen, right?
100%. And I think you said something to me last time that really stuck out. These huge corporations, the way they're doing it, they're not doing it, the way you guys are, obviously, how basically a technique that's centuries old techniques. But the way they're doing it now is literally they're saving pennies by doing it this way. So they're not even saving that much money, right?
Well, they're saving penny when you're working in such huge quantities, those pennies add up.
Yeah.
So that's where the difference kind of comes in to me is when you get to that scale where cutting a little corner in the manufacturing process is tens, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's where the consumer loses, right? So that's the whole deal about all these producers and all these kind of manufacturers is you don't cut that last tiny corner because it's going to affect the quality. Sure, on some level at our scale, it's going to affect the profitability at a tiny, level, but the goal is always quality first. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest difference. Publicly traded corporations. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a penny per share, whatever it's going to be. It's that becomes the single most important factor when you're a publicly traded company or when you're a large company like that.
So funny you said that. I just looked down at my notes and it says quality above all else.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been using that. That's what we do. That's what we try to do, at least, that's everything to us. So
you're training me. I'm getting trained. I like it. Okay, I want to talk about the controversy you and I have between you being on CBS this morning. I'm going to cut back to right when I hit record at the very beginning of this episode. I want to talk. I think I saw you on CBS this morning, right?
no.
Your company was on CBS this morning.
When?
I want to say this year. God, good thing
What do
I
you mean?
asked.
Like the
Like the show,
national?
yeah. Were you in the
No,
news?
no. Nate Burleson was here.
That's what. Yeah, Nate.
Yeah, so he was here at the distillery.
Well, it was on CBS this morning.
No,
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah. Because I said, how dare they? I had him first.
No way. I don't think.
Okay, hold on. Listen, I'm the journalist in this outfit, Rufino. I saw you on CBS this morning. I saw Valentine Distilling. I saw Nate Burleson, and I was like, Rufino's on network TV. But I didn't get to see the segment, but there was no segment, you said.
I don't think so. So the story, as far as I know, is this, and it could have been on there when I wasn't watching it, but I don't think so. I think what you were seeing is when Nate Burleson was here in Detroit at the distillery, and he's been here several times, beginning early last year or early this year, I think, and we've been working on a joint venture. So we're coming out with another line extension of our flavored vodkas.
Okay. Wow.
So Nate actually, his guys, I guess, were, so Nate says Detroit is his, adopted hometown.
Yep.
He's originally from up where you are, originally Canada, but Seattle. Detroit is his adopted hometown because he played here for years.
Uh-huh.
And he asked his guys here, he's like, who do we know or who makes vodka? Who makes good vodka? And they all said Valentine. So
stop. Really?
So that was really satisfying to hear that. And that's how he got in touch with us. And then because he knew what he wanted to do. And so we've been working on a new flavor that we're going to launch in the springtime. So
you can't tell me you can't tell me the flavor, can you?
I think it's blood orange based. Blood orange based.
Fun.
So yeah.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. Does Nate call you? Does people call you? He's got people, I'm sure. That's like a level of success when you have people. Does his people call you?
I think the original contact was his people reached out to me.
Okay. Did you know Nate? Did you know Nate?
Of course. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Have always been a fan. But so I like this part of the story where, so, everybody seems to have a celebrity do this, and celebrities want to put their name on stuff. And it just kind of seems like, on some level, a money grab and all this kind of stuff. So it's always, as a manufacturer, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle? Do you want to do these things? And something I've carried with me from the day that I started this company has always been, I don't care, who we're in partnership with, whether it's a cleaning company or anybody, just whatever level. I want to be with good people. And that's kind of obviously just a general term, but like, I don't want to even mess with, and you find out really quickly sometimes, who the good people are and who not so much. Nate is amazing. Like, and I'm not just trying to say this. He is a really, really good guy.
Yeah.
And he has good intentions, and has a very focused intent on what he wants to accomplish. And I'm impressed with what he's done after football. I mean, he's really, in a short amount of time, he's really done a lot in entertainment. And I think that kind of goes back to, people taking what they do seriously. We share a lot of the same characteristics, I think. He's obviously a lot better at what he does than I am, but it's that attitude of like, I'm not just going to go on TV and wing it.
Yeah.
He works, you can tell he works very hard at what he does to be good.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me to be able to, work with him and do this project with him. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, congratulations on that. I know it always feels good when you have outside validation, right? It's one thing if like your partner, they're like, "You're great. I'm proud of you." You're like, "Oh, thanks." Yeah, you're kind of supposed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you have outside, validation of like who makes the best vodka? This guy. It's in Detroit. Done. This is who I'm going to go with.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is nice to get that every once in a while. Business is tough, so it's nice to get that every once in a while. That what you've been doing for almost 18 years, is getting noticed, or people are noticing it.
God, no kidding. No kidding. And you just have to, like I always think about the little engine that could. You just have to like keep chugging along, keep climbing the mountains, because as soon as you get over one hill, you're just faced with another usually. And so you just have to keep at it. I mean, it's hard.
That's absolutely right. And these times right now are definitely proving that to be true.
Absolutely. I wanted to chat with you a little bit about storytelling. This is my big push in life because I'm a journalist. I am a storyteller. And I do believe that when someone tells their story, it really sets them apart, especially if you're trying to market yourself out there. I go to the liquor store and I see a bazillion bourbons and whiskeys on the shelf. And even in Oregon, I always look for yours. I know it's not going to be there, but I always look for it. That's where I want to spend my money. I know your story. I love your story. And so I am much more happy to shove dollars at you to buy your bourbon over anybody else's.
Well, I mean, isn't that the whole idea? I talk about this too all the time, giving tours here and whatnot. If you're starting a business just to make money, or if your goal in life is just to make money and get rich or whatever, like, what are we doing? Like, why are we here? And I've always said, like, there better be a bigger purpose behind everything that you do, right? Or else it's just kind of, man, what are we doing? What are we here for? So I've always been a big believer in, it's not the story does help sell your product, but I hope people don't come away with, well, it's a story to sell your product. It's a story about what we do. And hopefully that resonates, it resonates with your customers.
For sure. And I think your story, when I say that, it's a story of craftsmanship. It's a story of quality above all else. It's a story of, the idea that you weren't in a job that was super fulfilling and you wanted to kind of go back to the way things used to be when it comes to especially distilling spirits. And so I think that's what I'm referring to. It's this story of just like, in my opinion, in my eyes, you're doing it the right way. And I just wish, and there are businesses out there that are doing things the right way. And again, that's who I want to support, even if it costs me a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, that's the value proposition for us. We're giving you hopefully a better product, and your dollars are going to more than just spending.
Sure. So Valentine Distilling Company, you distill bourbon, vodka, and gin?
That's right.
Okay.
But a bunch of different types of each of those. Those are the three major classes. Yeah.
Yes. And then I saw
rye whiskey. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Rye whiskey is my favorite.
Do you like rye?
I do.
Oh,
I do.
I gotta send you some bottles. I think our rye, I think our rye is the best kept secret that we have. It is our smallest selling product. It is our, we don't sell very much rye, but I think it's one of our best products.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that people are starting to, the early on in the pandemic, everybody got into bourbon, it seemed like, and everybody became a bourbon expert. I hope those experts start expanding into rye, because the way that I see it, if you took every bourbon on the market, their flavor profiles are here. If you look at rye, the flavor profiles are all over the place. So for me, it's a interesting and exciting spirit where you can experience a lot of different flavors and notes.
Fun. Yeah, I think it always seems like rye whiskey, you're either you like it or you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, we get that a lot. A lot of people don't really, they haven't sat down enough to really try it, but yeah, some people are like, no, rye.
Yeah, I've surprised myself. I mean, I'm not like this huge whiskey drinker where I can drink it. Is it neat? Is that where it's like no ice cube?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't do that. It's a little too much for me. Although I can with the ice cube in it. But I was really shocked that I really do like rye whiskey. I think it has a really interesting flavor and I like it, especially in other like cocktails and stuff.
Yeah, it runs the gamut. Everybody knows rye is peppery and spicy, but there's a whole bunch of other notes that you can get out of rye. And, we have fun when we're making our small batches. Almost everything we do is a small batch that's going to be different than the next batch. And rye, we're getting not only that peppery flavor, but I call these nice vegetal flavors. Like if you were in a new freshly cut hayfield, how that smells and how that would taste. It's like you're getting a lot of notes like that. So
Love it.
rye's fun. Yeah.
Very cool. What's right over your shoulder? That copper, is that copper?
That's our that's Sherbert. That's our big copper still. It's named after my old sheepdog. That's
Sherbert.
Sherbert. Yeah.
Aww. I love that.
Yeah, he was my boy and he was in the distillery all the time.
Oh.
But that's a 1,800 gallon copper pot still.
Okay.
It was built in Italy by Freely. They're a company that's been making stills for over 100 years.
Wow.
This is the first one that they shipped to the U.S.
What? Really?
Yeah, we went to this manufacturer for a very specific reason. So again, making stills for over a century, but they're very well versed in triple pot distillation, which is all Irish and Scotch whiskey. That's what we do with our bourbon and rye. We triple pot distill. In the US, if you're going to get pot distilled, usually it's double pot or continuous distillation. The giant distilleries in Kentucky are doing continuous distillation. So this triple pot distilled, these guys were very well versed because working with Irish and Scotch whiskeys,
right,
distilleries. It took a year and a half to build. Just a huge. You can't tell on the thing. It's a big still.
Amazing. Sherbert. I think that's the best. Triple distillation. Is that lead to smoothness?
I don't refer to many things as smooth.
Okay.
I will talk more about texture, mouthfeel, viscosity. So I think it really lends itself to that. So when we look at it, we're basically distilling it once, putting it back in, distilling it a second time, putting it back in, distilling it a third time. That third distillation, or each distillation, is heat and oxygen. So these are all chemical reactions again. And what we think on the third distillation is we're able to develop the longer chain molecules.
Okay.
That will then give you that texture, that viscosity. Some people call it smoothness, but more of those other notes.
The dum-dums like me call it smoothness.
No.
And I apologize for the dumb questions. What goes through that distiller? Everything?
Yeah, so that will touch every one of our products at least once.
Okay.
So when we're doing vodka and gin, it will be once in sherbet, And then let me see if, and then the
Ooh,
next distillations will go to this one.
those are so beautiful.
Yeah, this is a German still, and it's funny. The Germans and the Italians, they want their equipment to look just as good as it works.
I love it.
They're just they want it to be beautiful but yet functional and top notch too. So it's funny. They are really pretty pieces of machinery. But so whiskey will go into sherbet 3 times. The other products will spend 1 time in sherbet and then go to the other still to be finished.
I love it. And is that like the talk on the floor? How many times has it been through sherbet?
Yeah, I mean, essentially.
I love it. Oh, I love that. How long does it take, let's say, your bourbon? How long does that take?
The youngest we sell right now is 6 years.
Ooh,
So it will take when our regular production schedule would break it down into basically weeks, and we'll process about 7 tons of grain per week. Run that 3 times through sherbet. So after a week and a half, we will make about 14 barrels of whiskey.
wow.
And then it's at least 6 years. Put it in the barrel. We call it
Man,
sending away to college.
for
Go away for
real.
go away for a couple of years. Hopefully you come back better.
Oh, for real. I thought wine was time consuming. Nope.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the youngest that we're selling. So
Yeah.
we just bottled some 10-year the other day, but it's patience. Well, I don't even call it patience. I just forget about it.
Yeah.
It's just like you make it, put
You
it in the
have to.
barrel, forget about it. Yeah.
You have to. Otherwise you'll
Yeah.
go mad. You'll go crazy.
Yeah.
Do you those 10-year bottles, do you like kind of just open one up? I mean, because my winemaker friends always their biggest thing with wine is that it's time in a bottle. It's the climate in this bottle. It's the staff they had at the time that was working, to
Yeah.
put this juice in this bottle and lay it down. Do you think that same way too? You taste this, 10-year-old and you're like, oh, do you remember 10 years ago when we did this?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's funny. It is. We do think about it as a snapshot in time. Um, I don't think we have as much terroir as winemakers do. Um, but it is a snapshot of in time where you do remember
Absolutely.
it, and it's like, man, time. So you say you forget about it too, but as you know, time flies, especially as you get older. It's
Hmm.
like time goes fast, and you look back 10 years, and you're like, wow, I
Yeah.
can't believe it's already been 10 years. So.
I just ran into a viewer and they were like, I haven't seen you on the news recently. And I was like, oh, I like retired from news in 2021. And then I'm like, it's really been that long. And then I looked at this person and I'm like, honey, you need to get with it. I haven't been on the news in a long time. So yeah, time does fly when you're having fun, I guess.
Yeah,
Um, Speaking of flying, are you still flying? You're flying,
I
right?
am. I am. Yeah, that's the one time where I probably am not thinking about this business,
Yeah.
where it is just you're up there, and that's all you're thinking about. And
Please, please don't think about anything else when you're that high off the ground. Please.
no, and the exciting thing for me is my wife finally has kind of gotten over her fear of flying, so she's been going on trips with me, so that's been a joy.
Good for her. I'm right there with her. My stepdad, I think I mentioned this. He was a pilot. He could probably hop in any sort of plane right now and fly it if he was forced to. But I remember a little trip we were taking and he was dodging thunderstorms. And I think that's where my fear came in. I was just like, I'm done with this. And now, I mean, the turbulence now, I feel like it's worse than it used to be. Is that, do you think so?
I mean, it could be. There's been reports of bad turbulence, but usually you can change hopefully you can change your altitude and find some clean air. But
Yeah.
that's the big thing when my wife comes. It's like I don't mind the turbulence. When she's there, it's like, all right, let's find that clean air.
Yeah. It's the turbulence for me. I'm white knuckling it the whole way. And then the landings lately on commercial flights, the landings have been atrocious. I feel like, it's the kid who just graduated flight school is landing this monster plane for us. That's what it seems
It's
like.
it's either that or it's the guy who's used to landing on aircraft carriers, and he's like, I'll get this bird in no matter what. So it's one of the two.
Yeah. Anytime I hear the pilot come over the air and they're like, hey folks, just, fasten your seatbelt. We might experience some bumpy air. If I'm by myself, I'm just like, bring me a drink. And if I'm with my husband, I'm like, just knock me out. Like, just knock me out cold. I don't even. So I feel for your wife, and especially you're flying smaller planes, right?
Yep.
So those are
very small.
so scary.
I guess it's exciting for me.
Well,
I got
good.
a propeller.
I'm glad. I am glad you found something that makes you not think about work at all.
Yeah.
My very best friend is going through flight school right now, and he's having a ball.
I encourage everybody to do it who wants to. It really is fun.
Amazing. As I mentioned, we're recording this episode at the end of 2024, but it will air in 2025. What's on the horizon for you, for Valentine Distilling? I know the partnership with Nate and the vodka is coming out. Hopefully some growth with the company, sounds like.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're trying to take this turmoil time in the market and really make gains with it, really make hay with it. So we're still going to expand our distribution footprint. It looks like, we hope. We have this great partnership with Nate that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, kind of just more of the same.
Perfect. Yeah. You just keep trucking, right?
Yep.
Well, I'm excited for the day I see Valentine Distilling on my shelves in Southern Oregon, because I tell everybody about, and I haven't tried any of your stuff, any of the spirits. So, but I tell everybody,
I'm going to
like,
send you
it's the
some
best.
bottles. Yeah. I'm going to send you some bottles out.
Well,
and for those listening, it is available for mail order in most states. So there's links on our website where you can get it shipped. Okay. But I promise you, I'll send you some rye and some bourbon.
Well, not necessary whatsoever. Before I let you go, I always ask people, the final three, and I just wanted to rehash this with you. Your best advice, I believe, was wrestling advice, correct?
I do, probably.
I think you said. Oh, it was leave it on the mat.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff works no matter what you're doing, right? Like, you just gotta do your best and don't quit, right? That's the biggest key to success, probably, for most people.
Love it. Your happy place is in the air.
That's right.
Okay. Not final meal. That's my old final three question. In all things food and drink, what do you crave? What always sounds good to you?
Mexican.
I think you said fish tacos.
Did I? Yeah, so that hasn't changed.
I think because it was snowing. It was February when we chatted, and you said it's freezing here, and I just want to be in a warm climate with fish tacos.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Amazing. Well, I'm so glad you made some time for me. Rifino Valentine, president and founder of Valentine Distilling Company. Again, I love your story. Easily one of my favorite interviews of all time.
Wow. Thank you. It's you as well. This is a pleasure, and we should make this an annual event.
Hey, I'm here for it. All the best of luck in 2025, and I'm going to be looking out and keeping up with all the cool things that you're doing, especially that vodka. I'm excited.
It's going to be a good one.
You've been listening to Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma with me, Trish Close. You can watch this podcast and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Just search Hungry for More, an Epicurean's Dilemma. You can also listen and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.